All right, welcome back, day 7. Today we are talking about the nervous system. So this is really key. If already you can feel your eyes glazing over because you think you're about to get like an anatomy class, textbook kind of experience, stay tuned in, stay with me. You don't have to know a whole lot about the nervous system for it to drastically change your life. So the reason that this matters during a dopamine fast is that in those moments of emotional overwhelm, mental discomfort, boredom, what's happening is something in the nervous system, and generally speaking, right, Anna Lemke says there's one of two reasons that we reach for our addictions. One is to have fun, right, or experience pleasure. But another is to solve a problem or soothe. And so usually the problem we're trying to solve is anxiety, anger, frustration, some sort of internal problem that we're looking to soothe or solve with that addiction. That's what I want to touch on today, because what's happening there is what we call nervous system dysregulation. I won't get too wordy about this, but regulation is a process, right? To regulate something means to constantly be in movement, but bringing it back toward baseline all the time. So the nervous system has the ability to be in a rest and digest state. So this is a state where we're calm, we're present, we're thinking clearly, we are feeling good pretty much, right? So that's the ideal state to be in. Not the right state to be in, but that's where we want to return to. It's not bad to be dysregulated. It's inevitable, actually. That's part of being human. But we want to bring ourselves back to that chill, calm, cool, collected state. But life happens, and things will take us out of that state. That is what we call dysregulation. When something spikes us up into a stressed or activated nervous system state, that's a version of dysregulation. But there's also things that happen that drop us down into a shutdown state, right? Think of a time you've been so overwhelmed that you kind of just go numb, right? You can't really think at all. You're sort of frozen. You're zoned out. Maybe you're super sleepy. Maybe it feels like you're like watching life happen, but you're not really a participant in it. You're not feeling excited. You're not feeling motivated. That's a shutdown state. Also dysregulation, right? So just two different versions. We've got the amped up and the shutdown. You're probably experiencing both of these from time to time throughout this dopamine fast because, remember, this is unfamiliar territory, right? We're robbing ourselves during this dopamine fast of the things that normally make us feel better. Here's a really key thing to understand about your nervous system. The nervous system evolved. It's ancient, right? Ancient. It's the reason we exist because our ancient ancestors had nervous systems that adapted really well to those past threats in order to enable the species to survive. So we're here thanks to this very wise and intelligent nervous system that is evolved to help us survive. That's the whole name of the game for the nervous system, survival. So the nervous system likes what is predictable, what is familiar. And that's because it knows what to do with that. If the nervous system's whole job or main job is to help us survive, then it likes things that are familiar because it knows what to do with them, right? It says, oop, I've experienced this before, and I have these mechanisms set up to help this person survive this situation, implement this mechanism or implement this process when this trigger occurs. We know what to do with that. We can work with that. The nervous system is very dysregulated or essentially thrown off when it encounters something new and unfamiliar because there's no pattern there for it to work with. There's nothing familiar that it knows, fire this process. It's in uncharted territory, which is very destabilizing for the nervous system. So the nervous system will prefer what is familiar even if it's not healthy. Think about somebody who grew up, you might even be somebody who grew up in a really chaotic home environment. So when you were a child, your nervous system adapted to a very chaotic environment. It had to learn the exact type of chaos. It had to learn what to expect from the chaotic people in that environment so that it could adapt or respond accordingly to survive that environment. So for somebody like that, the nervous system's baseline is chaos. That is what is familiar to the nervous system because that is what it is used to. That is what it will prefer as it goes forward because it knows what to do with that. So a person who experiences a very chaotic childhood and then grows up, leaves the chaotic home, moves into a very peaceful life where there are no chaotic people, those people are likely to continue pursuing or seeking chaos. So they will end up in abusive relationships. They will end up in toxic work environments. They will end up being like adrenaline junkies who are constantly seeking very jarring or chaotic environments in any way, shape, or form that they can. This is not logical or conscious. They're not saying, you know what? I really liked the chaos of my childhood, so I'm going to keep trying for more chaos. This is happening on a nervous system level, deeply beneath conscious thought. So the reason that's happening is, like I said, the nervous system knows what to do with chaos, so it's going to stay with familiar because it knows what to do with it. Unfamiliar is scary, and the nervous system will experience it as a threat, essentially, or will respond to unfamiliar things with a stress response. So a person like this who grew up in a chaotic environment, if they find themselves in a peaceful environment, their nervous system is going to be distressed. It does not compute. It does not know what to do with peace, so it won't stay there, even though it would arguably be the healthier place to be. So why am I going on this tangent? Because we are about to be taking the nervous system into very unfamiliar territory here. We already are. I mean, we're in the dopamine fast. So there are moments where the nervous system is like sounding all the alarms, like this is not right, this does not feel good. These are the sort of withdrawal symptoms that we feel. Those are being fueled by the nervous system. So it's important to know what those feel like, right? When you find yourself in an activated nervous system state, that higher state of dysregulation, what's happening up there is you're going to be rushing around, you're going to be irritable, you're going to be restless, right? So you're not going to be able to sit still. You're going to be doing, finding little tasks to work on, not resting, not slowing down. You're going to have a really hard time being in the silence and in the stillness. Those are times when you'll know you're not going to be sleeping very well. That's a good indication, or those kinds of symptoms are a good indication that you are in an activated or fight or flight nervous system state. So good to know. Take note of when you're in an activated state. And then you might be finding yourself in a shutdown state. Shutdown state is a place where you can't really think straight. You can't really form any clear thoughts. You are not motivated. You might not even be able to move. You might find yourself sort of glued to the couch, sleeping a lot. Also in a shutdown state, you'll find yourself feeling actually cold, actually frozen. So, right, we've got fight, flight, and freeze. So this shutdown freeze state is a place where you'll find it very hard to actually move or get anything done, even if mentally you're sitting there thinking about the 6,000 things that you need to do. You will not feel able to get up and take action on those things. Okay. So that's a little brief rundown of what those dysregulated nervous system states are like, how you might know that you're experiencing one of those states. And there are different ways to get yourself back to that healthy rest and digest state. We are not just at the mercy. There are things we can do to regulate the nervous system back to where it needs to be. So if you're in an activated nervous system state, slowing down is key, right? However, little caveat here. You are very activated, right? If you are very upset, very triggered, very stressed out, I believe I may have discussed this in another video, but I'm going to review it just in case. The body, the nervous system, is experiencing threat and stress. Now, back in ancient times when this nervous system evolved, the types of stressors that the nervous system was picking up on were like actual predators, things that we actually needed to get away from. So when we are in an activated nervous system state, fight or flight, what's happening is the nervous system is flooding the body, or it's triggering the body to flood itself with stress hormones that are activating, that make us move and take action to get away. So things like adrenaline and cortisol, the things that stress us out and activate us to move so that we can run away from the threat. Just because today it might not be a physical predator out in the environment that we're stressed out by, the nervous system is releasing the same chemicals, right? So it's not to say that the nervous system experiences today's modern stressors in the exact same way that it experiences an actual predator chasing you, but it does the same things in the system in response to stress. So when you are flooded with these stress hormones, movement is your friend, okay? Now, I know that might sound counterintuitive because I was saying, right, that when you're in the activated state, you're moving, and you can't stop moving. Intentional movement to essentially exhaust your body is what's called completing the stress response, right? We see animals do this. Just recently, my dog and I were out on a walk, and a very large dog escaped from his yard and chased us, and it was terrifying. So we actually were being chased by a predator. And what happened after that, after we successfully got away from this dog, my dog did a full body shake about 5 times in the 2 minutes that followed that experience as we walked up the sidewalk. Started with his head, shook his shoulders, shook his booty, shook his back legs, all the way down. What's happening there is he's completing the stress response. I did it as well, and you've probably had experiences like this too, whether it was being chased by a dog or whether you just had a fight with someone that you loved or you're exchanging fiery text messages back and forth with someone. You're shaking. And what this is the body trying to complete the stress response. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is that the nervous system is experiencing a predator, whether or not that's real. The nervous system is experiencing a threat that it is activating you to get away from. So we can trick the nervous system or convince the nervous system that we have successfully escaped the threat with vigorous movement. That can be a full body shake, right? So I mean it. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to show you the full body shake. It looks weird. It's going to be weird, but it's a full body shake, and not just for a second, for as long as you can until you are out of breath, until you feel a little bit exhausted or at least tired out a little bit by the full body shaking. But you don't have to just do the weird full body shake. You can also, we have a trainer bike inside, so any amount of cardio, right? Anything that gets you winded, out of breath, heart pumping, that is telling the body, look, I'm getting away. So that can be dancing, that can be jogging in place, that can be jumping jacks. But if you're finding yourself really activated, really anxious, really stressed out, do a short but fast and vigorous burst of movement to tell your nervous system, I'm escaping, I got away, and then slow down. Okay? That's the key. So I'm not saying move all day, every day, vigorously keep moving, because that's just going to keep your body in a really activated state. Do it short, fast, and quick. Wear yourself out a little bit, and then practice stillness. So once you have completed the stress response in that way, a way to bring yourself back down to baseline is to lean into stillness. This will feel uncomfortable. I promise you. Because, like I said, if you are finding yourself sort of chronically activated, constantly a busybody essentially, or constantly looking for things to do, restless, your nervous system has accepted that as your default state. That is what it has adapted to. Rest is going to be triggering. Rest is going to feel wrong. Stillness is going to feel unpleasant because it is unfamiliar. Do it anyway. Those of you who are really resonating with this activated nervous system state that I'm talking about, I want you to make one of your hard things that you do this dopamine fast to be slowing down. Meditation, stillness, napping. And I don't mean stillness like sitting there reading a book. I mean sitting there doing nothing on purpose. Restorative yoga, yin yoga, these are great practices for teaching your nervous system that stillness is in fact safe. If you do this enough, it might seem silly to say that resting is a skill that you have to practice, but it is. And if you practice the skill of stillness and resting enough, it will become a familiar state for your nervous system, and you will find yourself settling into that rest and digest state more easily, rather than constantly being stuck in an activated state. It will take leaning into those practices even when you don't like them. Okay, and then the reverse is true for the shutdown state. If you find yourself sort of chronically in those states of immobility, lacking motivation, unable to think clearly, unable to do things, if you find yourself sort of, like I said, observing life but not really feeling like you're a participant in life, you are going to need not just movement for the sake of movement. And hear me now that I'm not saying just start doing all your chores and staying busy and taking on projects. Intentional, mindful, embodied movement. Why am I saying embodied like this? Because that's really key. When we are in a shutdown state, we are dissociated, especially if you feel like you are not really a participant in your life, or like your life feels like a movie, or if you feel completely shut down and not really able to find motivation. This is a sign that your mind and body have sort of disconnected, right? Especially if you're thinking like, I need to do this and this and this and this and this, but I can't. Your mind has it all going on. It knows what you need to do. Body can't make it happen. So if any of this is resonating with you, and I also want to make it clear that it's not either or. It's not like, oh, there are people who are activated and there are people who are shut down. We fluctuate. Remember what I said? Regulation is like an always in flux situation. There are times when things are very activating and we are in the activated state. There are times when things are overwhelming and we go into the shutdown state. So you will move in and out of both of these states very often. Just take note of that. So if you find yourself in these more shut down states, you're going to need mind-body connection. You need to bring the mind and body back into sync with one another. Warmth is very helpful. So this is a freeze state, and it really is true that it can make us feel cold and frozen. So a really great way to tend to the body in a loving way is to use sensation, and warmth is a really helpful one. Take a hot shower, right? Not only is a shower a nice way to sort of reset and restart the day, it's something productive that you can do to sort of get yourself doing anything. The warmth will be very helpful. So a hot shower is a really great thing to do. Also, gentle movement. You don't want to do intense exercise when you're in these places because of the fact that you are not super tuned in to your body. You're likely to injure yourself or not be able to sense your limits if you're in a freeze state trying to do movements. So when we're talking about movement from a shutdown state, we're talking gentle forms of yoga, not vigorous yoga. We're talking gentle stretching, gentle things like neck rolls, gentle things like massaging, like self-massage, right? So if you have massagers, or even if you just have your good old-fashioned hands, if you have a hot tub, sit in a hot tub. Things that bring physical sensation into the body and gentle movement, right? Go on a slow walk, right? We're not going on a freaking run. We're not doing a vigorous workout. Slow, gentle movement. Body scan meditations that bring mind and body together, that bring awareness into the body. That is what embodiment means, right? Embodiment is the linking of awareness with body. I could do a full yoga practice disembodied, right? I could move through all the poses, do what the teacher's telling me to do. I could do any sort of movement. If you're not a yogi, you could do anything that seems like it's an embodied practice because you're doing it with your body, but you could be dissociated or disembodied while you do it because you're up in your head, not tuned into with the experience of the body. The key piece of embodiment is that you are aware of what the body is doing. The body isn't just doing something while you are mentally elsewhere. To get yourself out of the freeze state, link mind and body together by being mindful of what the body is experiencing as you do these things. That is why body scan meditations like Yoga Nidra and somatic tracking are very helpful types of meditation for people who are stuck in a freeze state, because it just starts to get mind and body back online together. So I hope that this has been helpful. Know that as you, like I said, rob yourself of your normal nervous system soothers, that you're going to experience these symptoms of nervous system dysregulation, whether they're the heightened states or the more shut down state. These things are going to come up for you. Learn to recognize those. And maybe in your journal today, you can write down like, yeah, I'm seeing that lately, or as I've been going into this dopamine fast, these are the types of experiences that I've been having. See if you can identify which of these states that you are in the most frequently, or maybe you can write down which sorts of circumstances trigger you into either of those states, and then write down some of these examples that I've given you of things that you can do to bring yourself either back up or back down to that rest and digest state. Your nervous system is so important. A lot of what we experience as far as symptoms, thoughts, feelings, sensations are actually being fueled by the nervous system, most of us just don't know what's going on down there because, like I said, it's so beneath conscious thought. And let's be real, most of us are not taught how the nervous system works. We should be. This is like perhaps the most critical information for us to have, but it's not taught to most of us. So I hope that this information has been helpful. Remember it because this is going to be very relevant as you continue through this dopamine fast. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.